Okay, here it comes. Tonight, indeed. A big game down at Villa Park, and one of great interest to us here on the Dearly Departed show, because it is Aston Villa versus Leeds United in what has turned into quite the rivalry, I think, now. Now, let's try not to get too prickly in the comments, because as my mum used to say to me when I was growing up, "Oh, Ben, you see, the problem with you two is you're falling out. You're just a bit too similar." And I dare say when I look at Leeds and Aston Villa, I see two mighty giant clubs that have had huge histories with massive fan bases, who have not had the best of times. They've not had the best of owners, not the best of operational decision making over recent seasons. Leeds going back for a longer period than Villa, it has to be said. But there is now a sense that they are both on the rise again, and both, hopefully for their sake, stabilising in the Premier League under good ownership with good managers, and both seem to be building stable, good, competitive Premier League teams. I think you need to tip your hat to both. And before we get prickly in the comments, especially when we talk about this one, because I want to talk about the two Dean Smith, Marcelo Bielsa games. There's the second one, actually, we're going to do first, which the 1-1 draw back at the end of that season. Now, I was at both of these games, and I was privileged to be at both of them for different reasons. Obviously, this one is remembered for the carve-up at the end of the game where Click scored and the Villa player was down and they didn't stop. And then Bamford and El Ghazi get into it, and then Bielsa says to Adoma to score the goal. Look, can we just park that, please, now? Because for me, it doesn't. It's not important for two reasons. One, because as we all know, Villa had already got the playoff place there. Leeds were already going to be short for automatic after that Easter weekend, and Sheffield United going ahead. So I feel it would have played out a lot differently if something had been riding on this game, let's just say. And also, Bielsa dealt with it there and then. He said, right, this has happened, I'm doing this, draw a line under it. Obviously, football fans being what they are, struggle to draw a line under these things. But what I would much rather talk about is this game, which I also went to on the 23rd of December 2018. And long-time viewers of the channel will know I'm absolutely in love with this game. It was absolutely, utterly brilliant. And as a championship vlogger, I don't know if it will ever get any better than this. Look, it probably will. The championship always throws it out. But look, Aston Villa versus Leeds. You're not going to get a bigger matchup in the second tier very often than that, are you? And it was a brilliant game. It was 3-2. And it was the first chance I really got to understand these two managers. Obviously, I'd seen Smith a lot at Brentford, but he's now, and with great respect to Brentford, I'm a great admirer of Brentford, but Aston Villa is obviously, a different level over its history than Brentford. And so Smith at Villa and Bielsa at Leeds, and it was just fantastic, wasn't it? You can see there 3-2, Hurahan and Abraham with the goals, and then the arrival of Jack Clark, Janssen, and Kamar Ruth with the late winner. And it was fantastic. Okay, it was a bit kamikaze and a bit all over the place, but we got to see what I consider the noble principles of both of these managers. Now, don't hit me in the comments. I'm not saying Dean Smith is Bielsa. I'm not saying he will reach Bielsa or his career, but they actually share some similarities here in the noble pursuit of playing out from the back, trying to sort of start each phase of play with the intent of scoring a goal, and playing what I call active football rather than passive football. Obviously, Bielsa has mastered this over decades, and perhaps his is a little bit more fifth gear than Dean Smith's third gear. It's a bit more patient, but there are similarities. And when these two teams match up and these two managers, it's just been great. And that was a fantastic game. The only thing it lacked was Grealish. That if you look there, we had Hernandez as the chief creator. Grealish was injured at that point. But yeah, I just felt it's worth setting up the context that this rivalry is great. The managers match up very well. And look, come on, put your wanting to win aside. I think it symbolises a rise in both of the clubs that they're now competing in this way with the teams they've got now on the stage they're on now. That cannot be a bad thing. Enjoy the rivalry. I know they're sometimes hard. Villa obviously are on fire, aren't they? 4 wins on the trot. Leeds, with the back-to-back wins there over Sheffield United and Fulham, really encouraging one against Manchester City, but lost to Wolves this past week. I've had a bit of back and forth, and thank you to all the Villa fans, because I did actually call it out and say, look, I'd had a few Villa fans having a pop at me for saying exactly the same thing I said about Leeds. Now, everybody be calm, put your emotions to one side and leave your bias at the door. What I said about both teams is I didn't see any signs of viability in certain games leading up to 1-0 wins for both teams away in tight games. That gives me a lot more belief for both of these sides that they can have really good competitive seasons. And again, when I was describing Wolves the other night, I described them as they're not going to challenge the top 4, but they're not going to be in the bottom 4, but they're expected to be competitive in all Premier League games. I think if you gave that to either Leeds or Villa, they would take that all day long. Be competitive, but be nowhere near the conversation for being relegated. I think that would be where they would go. And I dare say, and I'm not pointing fingers at fan bases or specific fans or anyone, sometimes it's actually from within. And when the expectation changes, it's not actually the people on the outside who are reasonably asking, okay, is this viable? Villa up at the top of the league, Leeds winning the Premier League. Sometimes it's actually internally, it's the fan base who's having difficulty coping with, oh, now people are looking at our club differently now. They're not looking at Leeds and Villa in the Championship saying, what are they doing there? Or Leeds in League One even, for goodness sakes. They're now looking and saying, oh, what are they doing there? Can they stay there? So often it's actually, you might hear this term said, it's not my issue, it's your issue. So often it's actually, I've had this with Reading fans this week in the Championship. They're top of the league. And now everyone's going, are they going to stay there? And they actually seem to have a chip on their shoulder about people saying, are they going to stay there? Rather than the other people having a chip on their shoulder about them being there. Maybe it's a bit of both. But it's a nice change of expectations for both Leeds and both Villa, who are now, frankly, on the evidence, and I'll come back to my first point, of Villa being able to go to a Leicester and having a far more stable, sensible win that would predict success, far more than beating Liverpool 7-2 in a mad game, or Fulham collapsing, or Sheffield United getting a red card. Give me the 1-0 win over Leicester. And the same with Leeds and that win over Sheffield United. Leeds fans got cross with me, but if I'm a Leeds fan, I see much more viability and possibly predictive future success in a 1-0 win at Sheffield United, the way that happened, than 4-3 over Fulham or losing 4-3 at Liverpool. So I think hopefully we've got over that with both teams now, and we now have enough evidence to hopefully say for both, they're going to be competitive teams in this division. Are they going to finish in the top 4 or the top 6 either of them? Probably not, but look where we are and look where we've been. So that's what I will say. For Villa, there's been a key shift this season in that first 11. And we need to talk about Martinez coming in, and we need to talk about Barkley, Watkins and Cash. It's not so much the players that have arrived, it's what that has enabled the other players to do. For example, Martinez now being in goal seems a safer pair of hands and feet in respects of the actual system of play and the starting of attacks and progressing the ball forward. So that's great. Cash coming in, well, yes, he's a decent right back, but now that's brought Konza across with Mings, and now the balance of that back 4 looks a hell of a lot better. Now, here's the one that really is exciting Villa fans, and myself to be honest. Barkley comes in, and all of a sudden, you shift John McGinn back alongside Douglas Luiz, you put Barkley next to Grealish with Trezeguet, and all of a sudden now, your key player Grealish, well, he's got a mate next to him who's, going to be pretty decent in breaking teams down. And he's still got his other mate, McGinn and Louise, behind him. So what that does is it balances out where the attacking threat comes from in that Villa team. And yes, we all know Grealish is doing brilliant things for Villa, but now he's got Barkley. So the idea of a 4-1-4-1, Grealish out on the left. Okay, just double mark him. Keep him out on that side. Don't give him time on the ball. Keep him away from the goal. Get back up whenever he gets the ball. Fine. Okay, what if he pings it to Barkley now? And who's marking him? So it just balances things up. And then Watkins, obviously he was with Smith working at Brentford. I think there's a bit of a misnomer. I think a lot of the development of Watkins was actually done under Thomas Frank. But they're known to each other. And just that, being able to just run the box and that type of movement and in behind has really helped. Now, those tweaks to the Villa team. Look, and again, we're talking about a sustainable season. Are Villa at the moment are on course to win all their games? If you look at the first 4 games, that's not going to happen, obviously, is it? That would probably never happen in football. A team win all of their games. It just doesn't seem plausible, does it? What we're talking about is sustainability through a season of can they continue to be competitive, and that may mean in the end that they're, I don't know, somewhere between 8th and 15th or something of that nature. But are they building? Are they improving their team? Are they being competitive? This all looks good and all bodes well for Villa, doesn't it? So I suspect we will see, if not exactly the same, something very similar to that. Here is Leeds. And look, obviously the big caveat to this is that Leeds have only been up in this league for a few games, whereas Villa have had the season and the time to build. But there's some idea of Leeds actually doing a similar thing to Villa, in that there's the team that took Leeds up last season, and it feels like they've got the shirts, but in the background, I don't know whether there'll be the Cash and the Barkley and the, who else did I mention, the Martinez effect that Villa have had, but in the background now you've dropped in Koch and Rodrigo, Rafinha and Llorente. So they're not all just been thrown straight into the team. Koch maybe a little bit different. But now there's this sense of, well, you've got the shirt, but the quality of that 16 is now raising. If you can out-train and outperform this guy, you keep the shirt. If not, and obviously this is all predicated on them actually being good signings and being good players. The evidence so far looks good. If you can't do that, this other guy's going to come in and then he will raise your level and everything gets better. And that's what Leeds really are working towards, isn't it? So the issue is there at centre-half and with Calvin Phillips, who is not going to be about. Injury to Cooper in the warm-up meant it was Struick and Koch. And obviously Phillips is it a shoulder? I think he's hurt his shoulder towards the end of that game. So, potential worst case scenario for Leeds is, well, they definitely don't have their sort of star player and deep line playmaker in Phillips. And potentially they don't have their captain. And it's been pointed out to me that League One Liam, as he's been referred to in the past, when he's on the pitch, Leeds don't lose. And when this season, and when he's off the pitch, well, they have gone under. So he makes a difference, let's just say, at the back there. A, in terms of balance with that left foot, and B, in terms of leadership and the continuity of this team under Bielsa through the seasons. So it'll be interesting to see if Cooper's going to be back, and it'll be interesting to see what Bielsa does with Phillips and with that deep midfield position. Let's assume for 1 second that Costa, Harrison, Bamford, Rodrigo, Click are all going to keep their places. I had an interesting conversation the other day on YouTube. I forget who it was, so I would give them credit if I remember, so I apologise. Talking about, could Leeds maybe start to introduce, for games like against that Wolves game, maybe a sort of double pivot system where it's been Phillips and then players ahead of him. Maybe a little tweak in games where they really need to dominate territory as well as possession. Maybe he would use a 4-2-3-1. Who knows whether that might happen during the season. But someone's going to get an audition. And And in the past, we've seen Bielsa do very interesting things here in respects of actually moving a centre-half forward into this position. We saw Ben White do it, I remember, in a game at Huddersfield last season. So I'm very interested to see how he solves this conundrum. Does he bring... Well, he's light on centre-halves, so... But is that a Llorente job? Is that a Llorente debut? I don't know. Who's going to play centre-half? If Cooper's around, could he do Cooper and Koch? Stick Struijk in there? I don't know. It really is an interesting one. I'm sure Forshaw actually playing a game of football would have helped in the last year or what have you and solved that issue. But again, then does he bring Click back? And do you see a Tyler Roberts come in or a Pablo Hernandez start the game? It's going to be very interesting, that middle area of the pitch. There are many different ways he can go. And I think a long way to predicting the result of this game is in that how that problem is solved. I'm sure Bielsa already knows exactly what he's going to do, and they've been practicing it probably for a few days already. So I'm very, very interested. Is it Cooper, Koch, Llorente in the same system? If Cooper's not around, is it going to be Struijk and Koch? Klitsch comes back, Llorente comes in. I don't know. Get your thoughts in the comments. There are the odds. Leeds 21-10, Villa 6-5. So Villa just short favourites. And again, when I'm making my prediction for this, do the absences or potential absences of Phillips definitely and possibly Cooper tip this in Villa's favour? And does Bielsa solving that problem, is that the key to this whole thing? Because we think Villa are going to do the same thing. Either way, this has been an excellent rivalry between the two clubs and the two managers. I would beg of... I've got plenty of subscribers from both. I would beg both sides to just respect the other and say, look, these are big clubs that have been in bad moments that are now in a better moment. And the fact that this rivalry exists at this level is a good thing. And it's just a good matchup for the neutral, these two managers going against one another. That has been proven in spades in the past. So look, I think I agree with the bookies, and especially with the Calvin Phillips issue, that might make Villa slight favourites. But I'm sure Bielsa has got a trick up his sleeve. And will we see Pablo Hernandez start for the first time with this being said in the Premier League? Get your thoughts in the comments. Obviously, this is a dearly departed big one and a big one for the channel. I'm really sorry I can't watch it. I'm working tonight. I would have loved to have done a watch along for this one, but maybe we'll get the review out ahead of time tomorrow morning. Get your predictions in the comment and enjoy it. A brilliant rivalry, Aston Villa versus Leeds. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button to see more videos from this channel. Hit the subscribe button and to be notified every time we upload. Ring the bell for those notifications to come through on your device. If you really want to support the channel and me as a content creator, I will be eternally grateful if you head over to the merch store and grab something, or support over on Patreon, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Thank you for your time. Go and watch another video.